During the live stream today, a really interesting topic came up in conversation with the fellas, and that was this idea of what's more impressive, 180 kilos for 20 or 100 kilos for a set of 100. So 180 for 20 or 100 for 100. And I did a bit of a poll in the chat room, and something like 75% of people said that the more impressive feat of strength or endurance, whatever you want to say, is the 100 times 100. Interesting conversation, interesting thought, and that same train of thinking followed me on into the training session. And so I started kind of conceptualizing, trying to imagine what it would feel to have 100 kilos on your back for 100 reps. And then I couldn't get over the thought of not about the squatting portion of it, but so much, not as much as the actual weight on top of me for 15, 20 minutes, whatever length of time it takes for somebody to do that. So I kept thinking about it, and I thought, well, the squatting portion of it is not so bad. Even with the 180s that I'm doing right now, it gets to a point in the later sets that I can't have the weight on my back anymore. Like, it's almost like the bar wants to slip, and I'm not even in a low bar position. I just feel like I can't hold it anymore. Like my shoulders are hurting, my rear delts are hurting, like the whole upper back region, neck is hurting. And so I thought to myself, what if I thought about training that? How would you train that? Automatically I thought about the yoke, walking with a yoke, and I thought, well, could I mimic that somehow? Probably not as effective as a yoke, but what if I just unrack a barbell and hold it? And so today in this session, you'll see me standing around with the weight on my back. Just standing around for a minute. I put the clock down on the ground and I thought, okay, let's make it a minute. So I did the bar for a minute, 60 for a minute, 100. Kept doing it a minute hold before the squat portion of the set. And obviously, very, very quickly, you start to feel traps fatigue. I don't know whether it's so much the muscular fatigue or whether the bar is just pushing on your traps. And it gets to a point where you just start hurting. It's like no blood is getting into that spot, and so it starts to hurt. During the stream as well, I started reading out loud Super Squats book. I started reading bits and pieces, and the whole day today I'm thinking about, what goes into just standing and bearing weight. I don't know whether I've screwed myself up for tomorrow by doing this or not. But if you think standing still in a front rack or back rack or whatever you want to do, just standing there with the weight on your back, if you think that's easy, I invite you to take 50% of your 1 rep max and try and hold it for a minute. Try and get it to 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and see what the body's telling you. And then quickly you will learn that just standing there with the weight on your back is not resting. It's far from it. It's far from it. Now, I could be exposing some glaring weaknesses by doing this and being exposed, really. Maybe you are a different type of build and you have different types of strengths. Maybe you have no problem having the bar on your back. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. But for me, I can do 180 for 12 reps at the moment. And by the end of it, it's not so much that it's just the legs that are burned. The whole body's burnt. Everything. Even a few times now in the last few months that I've been doing this, the following day I would have DOMs in my forearms, in the extensors. How? Why? Well, maybe during the later parts of those sets, I start to kind of like motorbike rev the bar, trying to like use every freaking muscle that I have in my body to try and make it a little bit easier for me to get the weight up. I don't know, but it's interesting. So I'm trying to now think about this and I'm trying to think if it's a good idea to implement some of these holds. So clearly tomorrow I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to save myself tomorrow as I warm up. Maybe I can do it with a barbell or something just to kind of, get me warmed up in those muscles. But Don't do it with 140, 160. The idea is to save yourself for the 180. But once I get through tomorrow, maybe the 2 days off that I have, they're not really off. Maybe I can work on a little bit on those, let's say, the non-main movers of the body, of the squat. These synergistic, these stabilizer muscles, which no one really cares about, but I'm pretty confident that these stabilizer muscles have a lot to do with our results, our performance. These are our foundational muscles, and I can just imagine if those start to let go, the integrity of the structure starts to let go, and then the prime movers, which you are relying to actually do the moving, start to work against it, start to work against a lever that is now longer than it otherwise would have been if the stabilizer is held strong. So it's almost like, in basketball, if you don't have a really solid defensive line, if you don't have a big man that can maybe block a shot or two, then you feel really exposed, right? And then you start to think to yourself, okay, I'm going to try and step away from the ball, from the man with the ball, because I don't want to get beat. And so you kind of get exposed to the three-point shot, because you're trying to give yourself a step or two so you can kind of cut him off if he decides to drive. Because you're afraid that if he beats you, he's going to be a straight layup because your big man can't block shots. But if you do have a man in the middle, a big guard that can block shots, then you can really chase your guy around the perimeter, really take away that perimeter shot, because you have defense in the back line. Similar type of thought about the stabilizer muscles. If you know that you have really good stabilization, really good stability, you can really send it with your prime movers. You can really push it. And you're not going to worry about a wonky fishing rod type of phenomenon where, the fishing rod is just, buckling under the load at the end of it. It's just an interesting thought. And it feeds back into this whole concept of strength that you get from doing manual labor. These people are constantly shifting weight around for hours on end, and maybe their prime movers are not as strong as our prime movers that we're training squats and deadlifts and bench press, but maybe their stabilizers are really, really good because they're constantly working these stabilization muscles, because every movement they do is not just like the squat up and down, perfect motion. It's varied. Every single step they take is a little bit different than the last one. I don't know. That whole farmer strength put into this whole concept, maybe there's something to that. Because ultimately, if you're going to get to 180 for 20, you're going to have to feel comfortable with the weight on your back. You can't be also battling the glutes and the quads and doing the prime mover stuff and also worrying about buckling under the weight. It just doesn't make sense. And same with 100 for 100. The stabilizers need to be strong. You need to be thick in the torso. You need to be thick everywhere around these joints so you can withstand standing there for 10, 15 minutes, which is absurd to me. Absolutely absurd at the thought of that. Anyway, guys, appreciate you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.